we're filming this on supposed to be the 1st of Jan, but it's the 2nd today. I feel like 2nd of Jan for a lot of people is maybe the actual start to the year, because Jan 1, if people have been out partying or something for New Year's Eve, it's the recovery day.
Fucked.
Yeah, so it's a delayed start. But this is the week that you're going to be hearing everyone talk about their New Year's resolutions, the new year, new me, all this bullshit. Like, I'm going to the gym after this. Doesn't matter what time I go, it's going to be packed. It's going to be full.
Yeah.
But that got me thinking, what do you think about New Year's resolutions? Because I've got had the whole sort of manosphere sort of view on New Year's resolutions of being like, what do you need to wait for a specific date to start making change? You want to change something, change it now. It's the best time. 80% of me still believes that. I still got that mindset. But I was kind of thinking, like in the lead up to New Year's, when I had some time to just sort of sit back, step away from work, it's, if you're not the type of person who's good at like just sitting down and just making drastic change very quickly, it's probably a good jumping on point to just go, it's the 1st of the year. It's a nice clean date to go like, okay, this is the things that I want to do and think about. So like resolutions.
I'm not a fan of like blanket. Like, there'll be some people who like New Year's resolutions suck, and other people who think they're the best in the world, because it ultimately comes down to what works for you, like what actually will work. Mm-hmm. And so both sort of sides of this are valid. I was thinking of goals I wanted to work on like start of December. Yeah. So I started working on them the start of December. I don't need to wait till January 1st to start doing shit. Yeah. That's so I'm very much in that camp. When I'm working with clients and they're like, they're trying to lose weight or something, they're like, okay, next Monday. I'm like, no, it's Friday now. Weekend's usually the worst part. You start now. Yeah. Monday's arbitrary. Mm-hmm. Days and dates and weeks and stuff are all made up. But there is still something significant about January 1st, about these dates or times of the year that hold significance for us.
I wonder if that's too because it's like a collective thing, because so many people are doing it. I wonder if there's something in that where it's not like, if it's the 23rd of March and I'm just sitting down and go, okay, today's the day that I want to make this huge change. Like, I'm the only one that I'm conscious of that's making that change. Whereas New Year's, I go, oh, there's a lot of people here that are trying to do all of these. Like, I wonder if there's something in that it's a collective thing.
Yeah, there probably is. There are lots of people who will be like, what did you say, March 20 something? March 27th. March 27th was the day I gave up smoking. It was the day I gave up alcohol. It was, and you know what? That day holds deep significance for that person. Yeah. Right. I've got a few personal dates in the year that are very significant to me and not really to anyone else. I think what's different about January 1st is it is a cultural sort of reset button. It's when it's more culturally expected that everyone's going to start doing these bigger reflections. Mm-hmm. And you can fight that in your own mind if you want, because it is all made up at the end of the day. But is it worth... It's probably easier to just go along with that because that's the culture you were brought up in. And if it forces you or prompts you to really think about your last 12 months and what the hell you're going to do with the next 12, that's probably still a good thing.
Yeah.
My issue is just that most people, including especially myself, are just full of shit when it comes to... Like, it's a skill to get good at setting goals. Which is back to what you were saying before of like people will say, oh, I want to get healthy in 2025. Like, that's great. You're probably just lacking the skill of goal setting to construct that in a way that's actually going to work for you.
Yeah, and it could be more daunting as well, right? Because if you set a goal that's way too vague, it's intimidating because you go, what the fuck is the first step? Like, and then it scares you away from it. Because if you've never set foot in a gym, for example, and you go, okay, this year I want to get fit. It's like, well, okay, do you know anything about losing weight? You've never set foot in a gym, so you're going to have all that anxiety around there. Like, maybe, okay, you go, the goal is I want to lose X amount of weight. What are the very first steps I need to do? Get in the gym, get over the social anxiety of being in the gym, whatever it is. Like, I think that's a massive, and that's what I've tried to do this year with the goals that I've set. Like, I've broken it down into categories: work, personal, whatever.
Mm-hmm. That helps a lot too when you've got bigger, like 2 or 3 bigger headings, so it's
Yep.
easier to go back to. I'm only focusing on these 3 things, and within those, there's a million subcategories. But yeah, no, go on.
Yeah.
That's really
Well, and then from there, a roadmap for each one. Oh shit! A roadmap for each one is like break it down into quarters. What do I need to hit every quarter to make sure I'm on track with that goal? What do I have to do week to week? What are the day-to-day practices? Like all of that kind of. I'm trying to get pretty granular with it because I need to. I'm one of them people that if I don't check in on it regular, or if I don't have a
Yes.
way to track it as often as I can,
yes,
I'll forget about it
yeah.
and stop prioritizing. Like I need to make sure that I'm constantly on track with things. So yeah, that's the way I'm sort of thinking about it at the moment.
Yeah, that's most people. It needs to be front of mind. Most things exist on like a spectrum. So you got people who will say, "I want to get fit this year." They put zero extra thought into it, and so there's no plan of action taking at all, and so they don't end up doing anything because the goal was so vague. How do you even quantify at that point? Then you got people at the other end of the spectrum, which I'm in, and you're probably close to this end as well, where you can get too granular. Being autistic, I can get too stuck in, and there are non-autistic people like this too, but you can get way too stuck in like, I have to have, not the perfect plan, but like I have to have all my I's dotted, all my T's crossed before I do anything. And so that person, though they've put way more thought into it, ends up in the same place the other dude is in because neither party actually end up doing anything. Which was a really hard pill for me to swallow when I first wrapped my head around it. Like you in the final analysis are the same as the guy who's not putting any thought into it because neither of you are taking action. So the point I'm making is as long as you're directionally correct with action taking. So if your goal is, I want to get fit this year, but you don't really have, you're so new at it, you're like, I don't know how to break it down any more than that. Okay, do you have a gym membership? No, I don't. Look, that's a good start.
Yeah.
I don't know how to use gym equipment. Great. Go watch, there's tons of YouTube videos that will explain the basics of like how to use equipment, and start with machines. Machines are really safe, very simple to use, and commit to like three times a week is a good number, I think. But like make it a non-negotiable. You are far better off winging it 3 days a week, doing something
Than doing nothing.
Right. And so once you've done that, it'll stop working after a while because you don't know what you're doing. But then the next step is, I need more information. I need more help. You find more videos, you get a book, you get an ebook, you get a coach, whatever. But being directionally correct is one of the best pieces of advice I can give anyone. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Well, look, I think that's probably a good segue into then why the fuck are we doing this format? What is this? Who are we? Why would anyone care to listen to us talk about this kind of stuff? What are we even going to be talking about? So I think let's give a little brief intro into like who we are, what the intention is with this show.
Sure. I'll go first then. So I'm Ryan. Why are we doing this? So there's a lot of podcasts and a lot of content out there, I think, that is people who have made it, or in many respects have achieved a significant amount. And they're sort of sharing their wisdom from that position, which is great. With that, there's also, I think, there's a mental health epidemic, just period. I think you and I both agree that in particular, young men, even men 35 plus, I've seen a lot of them, are really struggling in this modern sort of age that we live in for a host of reasons. And so I'm doing this because I'm an incredibly flawed person, and I have struggled, and I have not made it in many respects yet. I'm someone who, looking back, was a very weak man, boy even, who lived in a lot of ignorance. And I sort of cut myself a bit of slack for that because there was a lot of ignorance. But I want to do this podcast as a way of documenting my journey, so that other people watching are like, oh, like I can relate to where these guys are at. You're a bit younger than me. I'm in my early 30s. How old are you again?
27 this year. 27,
yeah. So about 5 years or so difference between us, 5 or 6. And I think it would be nice for people who are trying to improve their lives, become better men, to follow along with people who are in the process of doing that. I think that's a different form of encouragement. It's great to get the wisdom from people who've got it, but I also think it's great to sort of be alongside others who are they're on the same fight you are.
Yeah, because you feel so, there's a big, like, I guess you feel quite removed from that, right? Like if you admire someone who's already hyper successful in some regard, they can talk about the process they went through all they want. Like I can sit and listen to Alex Hormozy talk about how he slept in his gym, he was homeless for it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, okay, he said he did that, but the guy's a billionaire. Like, you know what I mean? There's we're a different species at that point, or it feels like that. It's easy to get caught up in that trap.
Yeah.
So
you relate to him a bit more because he will tell that story.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, all right, you started there. I sort of feel like I'm there. Okay, there's hope for me. But yeah, it is different seeing people walking that path. Yeah. Yeah.
Being actively in it, I think that's an interesting thing, and that's something for me too. Is I'm obsessed with Chris Williamson's show Modern Wisdom. Right, I like the way that he has conversations with people, and there was I think it was with Hormozy. He talked about there's this thing called the lonely chapter. Yes. So, favorite concept that I learned in 24.
Yeah.
It was like, basically for people that don't know, it's if you're the type of person who's thinking about this, like, I hate the term personal development. I hate it. I hate it because it sounds cringy, but it's also the perfect, it's just what it is.
It is what it is, yeah.
Like, but it hurts. I feel a little part of me die every time I say those words. But the lonely chapter is if you're the type of person that started that process, you've probably noticed that certain things around your life have changed uncomfortably. So you might not be hanging out with the same group of friends anymore because they're interested in getting smashed every Friday night. You're trying to not drink as much, or you're trying to do different things. So the social circle might start to shrink. You start hanging out in different places, whatever. It starts to shrink, but you're also not making any new connections yet because you don't have anything to offer the people that you want to be around. You might not, if you're a business owner, you might not have the skills to offer other business partners, stuff like that.
That's exactly the point I was making with that woman that I went out with the other night.
Exactly.
Like, right. I'm like, I'm not at this level.
You can see you're on the path.
I want to be at this level with you because, but I'm not at this level,
well,
and I know I'm not.
Bro, it's 2nd of Jan. You're well on the way now, right?
Yeah, I've started strong. Yeah, go on.
But that concept, I was thinking about that because it's like, first off, when I heard that, I was like, oh shit, I can put a name to this weird thing that I've been noticing. Like, I'm not really interested in hanging out with every one of my old friends now because we just want different things. Now I can put a label on that and it's like, okay, that's what that is. Other people have gone through that process. This is pretty normal. But then the other thing that I noticed is when I was at Williamson's live event, I got into so that's in the ICC in Sydney, big event room, right? I got into my chair about 15, 20 minutes before it was due to start. And I'm sitting there and I just was sort of looking around, and I went to this by myself. I normally go to these events with my brother, but this time I just went by myself. You feel a little bit weird going into one of these events alone because it's kind of like, should I be here with someone? Like, whatever. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking around the room, and I noticed that there were a number of people, not just dudes, there were a couple of women as well, in the seats by themselves. And I just sort of took note of where there's probably like around 10 people that I noticed, right?
Just quickly, did you have seats assigned to you, or did you just get a tip, rock up and sit where you want?
Allocated seats.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, that was another thing that I'm like, because there was this chick that...
You're sitting on her own, you're like...
I was like, I have to. Anyway, I took note of these people, especially her. And I noticed that they weren't just waiting for people, because other couples were coming in, sitting down, and you could tell these people were there by themselves. And I'm like, that's interesting. So I wonder if out of those 10 people, surely at least 2 of them are feeling that lonely chapter feeling as well, right?
Oh, that went through your head, did it?
Yeah. Because
okay.
I wonder if those people are in that position. Like, surely out of 10 people, they're not just there on maybe some of them had a guest or someone they were bringing that cancelled, whatever.
Yeah. But
I'm like, that's interesting. So there are these people who are actively going through that process in that same sort of stage. This is the perfect sort of, in my mind, of what this show could be. This is for them. because the way I see this is there's a lot of community aspects that we could build around this as well, being able to help those people connect. That's something that's floating around in the back of my head.
And even though, I'm sure you'll agree with this, even though we're sort of coming at this from a men's, primarily like where guys are going, the experience of going through life as a man is just inherently different to a woman in many regards. We're sort of aiming this at men's mental health and self-development. But obviously, if women want to be part of that community,
100%. Yeah, it's just it's easier for us to we can't talk about the female experience. We don't know it. I mean, you've got daughters, so you've got a little bit of insight into it, I guess. But the lived experience of it's very different. I assume.
Yeah. That's a whole other subject.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Well, okay. What got you into that self-development? I seriously, I hate that phrase. But what got you into that process? Like, what made you? Did you have a moment
why do you hate that? I'll answer. But why do you hate the phrase? I get it. I say the same thing.
Purely because it sounds cringy. I think it's just that you say it and okay. Whenever I've gone to an event from like Andrew Huberman or Goggins or whatever, with Jordan Peterson, whatever, people that don't consume that content, don't know about that stuff, I go to, I'm going to this event. Even if it was like, I went to a couple years ago, there was this event, I think it was called Thrive. It's like a business entrepreneurial focused event, whatever. And like, so you just went to, is it like one of the motivational speakers? And I'm like, kind of, yeah, but Andrew Huberman, neuroscientist, but like motivational speaker, that's the image that people get. Like that, what's that? Tony Robbins. Yeah. That's the image that people get. This guy comes out on stage and he's hyping everyone up. It's like, I'm not saying there's anything necessarily wrong with that stuff, but I'm like, that's the image that people get when you mention self-development, I think, where then I have to have this whole qualifying conversation about what I'm doing. Most people don't like having those below surface level like it's just one of them concepts that I just think is so, it's other people's reaction that makes me think it 100%. It's or my perceived reaction.
Yeah, I get that. Like people ask, I've been meeting a lot of new people, they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, I don't want to say personal trainer, because what I do with the guys that I work with is more than just personal training. So I'm like, I've started saying I'm a men's development coach, but recently, as I've started saying that more, I qualify that with, but I hate that title. What I've been noticing is I say, but I hate that title. It feels like I'm a douche. Everyone I've said that to is like, no, that sounds really good. But I think it's the way that I talk about it. I'm like talking about men's mental health and humility and a bit and grace and like training for the character qualities it brings out, not entirely for the vanity element of it. So yeah, I think if we build the culture around this discussion, when we're talking about self-development, we're talking about stuff that maybe this is our ego talking, but we're talking about stuff we think is deeper or a higher ethic than just on a shallow level, how fancy can I look or be? Yeah. Okay, but I'm with you. I get that vibe.
But I think too is it's something that, just going off what you just said then, I think it's important then that I need to train that reaction away, because if I'm going to sit here and try and talk to people about that stuff, it's not good if I'm sitting there and going, well, yeah, but I have this weird, like, I think it just highlights a thing that I need to kind of get past, is not being too self-critical about the fact that I'm actually trying to do shit that's better than what I've been doing.
Yeah. I think the way I have learnt to do that well is you just share sort of elements of your story, which helps explain why you're doing what you're doing. So I've got lots of my story, but I, just for example, having the person that you love one day say, you're not the man that I need you to be or needed you to be, and then they walk out and they're gone. Like how you respond to that matters.
Yeah.
And part of my response was, part of that is bullshit and not fair, but a big part of that was fair. There's just a lot to work on. She would make complaints that she was not the only person making those complaints. And it's like, okay, all right. have to work on this. And that's what self-development is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that helps me get past it a bit better, I think.
That, and you know what? I think that's something that, you know, the way of thinking about it, where you sort of step past and even just start taking a little bit of accountability for a thing. That's something that I think that was a big light bulb moment for me, when it was like I'd go through a situation that it could be literally anything. Someone cuts you off in traffic, whatever, petty little shit, right? And it scales up to everything, the major events in life, right? This external thing happened. Okay, there's nothing I can do about it. What could I have done differently to not put myself in that position? How could I have thought differently to change my reaction to that thing? Did I really need to be pissed off for a whole hour after someone cut me off in traffic? Probably not. Like, you know, it's such a waste of mental energy, whatever. So there, like, just taking that little bit of accountability to go, okay, what did I learn from that? How can I action that to make sure it doesn't happen again, or mitigate the chances of it happening again? All of those little things. So that accountability, I think that's a mad sort of easy first little mental exercise people can do. Just look at the situation and just be like, okay, what could I have done differently? What can I start doing differently? That's a huge one. Yeah. So, okay, you go through that. Was that sort of experience for you what led you to starting the business as well?
I started the business before my split.
Was there a direction change from that? Like, have you found that, like, when you've gone through that shit situation, right?
Yeah.
Difficult thing to go through. Like, did that impact the way that you approach business, or change the goals for the business?
Yeah. It changed the goals sort of logistically, because I've got 50% custody of my girls. And so, and there are times like last year, my ex was sick. Her mum got in a bad car crash, so she had to go to Queensland to be with her, which great. But I can't run the business the way I normally would with those interruptions. So you have to change how the business works to be able to be more flexible, to juggle everything you're meant to juggle. So there was that front. But on a deeper level, it absolutely was like, I've been at many crossroads in my life before, but this one was like the biggest. I knew as soon as it happened, because you go through periods of sort of being numb. It's like the shock factor. I knew right from the start, up until this point in your life, this is the defining moment, and how you respond to this will determine everything else. So you got to think real carefully about how you react to this situation. And in hindsight, I'm very, very proud of how I conducted myself for the most part of the last 2 years. It had a huge impact on my business and my focus. You know, like Hormozy will say, like, use pain if that's what you've got. There were months where I was primarily fueled with just a lot of negative emotion, which is exhausting. I don't recommend that long term. Don't use that long term. But if that's what you got to get the thing moving, like, direct it that way.
Yeah, that's another thing that I've heard, that it's such a common thing for people to say, like, use that. But that's important to say, that I think it's a very good temporary or initial fire starter. But I think if you carry on with that energy you can't sustain that for 10 years.
No, it is a fire starter. It's gas. It's gasoline. Like, it just goes up, which is great. But yes, it doesn't work long term. So I've had to, part of your motivation, it's not just relationship. It can be, proving a point to people you grew up with, family, people that have doubted you. Part of it is spite. Spite's a pretty good motivator. Like, I'm going to show you. But part of the satisfaction of spite is the person it's sort of directed at giving you the response that you want. Like, oh damn, I'm missing out, or he's better than me now. One, you're never really going to get that, because they're never going to really admit to it in most cases.
100%.
And two, it still means that part of your validation is contingent on how they react.
Yeah.
So use it for fuel if you got it at the start, but I've worked very hard along the way to let go of that, and my motivations are like, I don't care how this is about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I think it's a dangerous trap to sort of fall into, where you take that. I feel like any external source of motivation, because it's not really drive, is it? But it's dangerous to rely on that stuff too much in the long term, which I think is a trap that a lot of people can fall into. Because I just don't think I don't think it can have a positive outcome in the end. It's going to lead to something.
Yeah.
Not whether it impacts relationships differently or whatever. There's a lot of ways that I think that going into something with that energy long term can go wrong.
You can when you've got enough experience with it, you can feel it in yourself.
Yeah.
Right? You can 100% feel it in yourself. So I'm trying to think of like a good example. The gym might be a good example, actually. The gym's a good example. When I first started coaching people, one of my massive issues throughout my life has been a very unhealthy combination of anxiety, genuine fear of people and of failure, and I have been very, very worried about how people perceive me because of struggled socially growing up and a lot of things, and severe impatience.
Yeah.
So when I first started training people, I wasn't a very good coach when I started. I started a home studio because I didn't want to work in a public gym and be seen for the fraud that I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew, looking at myself, I do not look like a PT. I need to work very hard to look like one. When you try and rush muscle growth, bad things happen. So overeating, got way too fat way too quickly, pushing. I remember about a year into training, I had this stupid idea in my head that I wasn't like a man until I could squat like 2.5 times my body weight or something, 2 times body weight. And so every session I was trying to add weight to the bar, whether my body was okay with that or not. And there was one day where I was like tearing up between sets because my body was just so sore. Every rep sucked. But I'm like, you have another 2 sets of this to do, which I did. But that had crossed the line. And then very, very soon after that, maybe in less than a week or 2, I was warming up in my squat. Something went pop in my back and I could barely pick up my kids for 6-7 months.
Shit.
Like that back injury was like 5 years ago or something, and I'm still paying for it.
Yeah, right.
So it's a lot better. No surgery. Surgery, I don't think, is often needed for that kind of back stuff. It's just a long process of rehab. But I was driven by insecurity and negative emotion, which is, a lot of guys will start the gym from negative emotion,
100%.
which is great. I coach men through using that. I'm like, use what you got. If you're honestly here because you're in so much pain, you hate the way you look, and most of this is being driven by negative emotion, we're not going to be able to change that.
Yeah.
And looking at you, you've probably got good reason to have negative emotion. So let's use it. But you have to temper it. It's easy to do that as a coach than do it with yourself. But I broke myself literally and figuratively because I put so much onus on, you have to look the part. You can't rush the body's adaptations. I had insomnia at the same time and 2 kids under like 3 at the time. Like I had a lot of contextual factors that would make muscle growth much slower.
So the recovery was not in there at all, right?
Yeah. Training really hard. Recovery was just not great. I had a physical job at the time as well. Like looking back, I'm like, I know so much more now. What the hell are you doing? But yes, I digress. But negative emotion, powerful. You have to be aware, like self-aware when using it. Yeah.
100%, man. Well, I think, is there anything else we need to hit in terms of sort of from a foundational sort of...
Well, you haven't shared your side of things. Why are you here?
Look, For me, a big part of it, I think, comes down to what I was talking about with that lonely chapter side of things now. I think now this is a good chance for me to sort of sit down and go, okay, I've realized that there are other people that are going through this. And I really love this idea of what you spoke about before of being like, we're actively in the process. We're trying to do the things, we're trying to figure the shit out. We're further along than some people, we're not as far as others, right? I really like that idea of being a voice that is sort of showing people, what do you do? Because for me, I never went through anything that was super traumatic, right? I had a lot of things rapidly change when I was like 19, I think it was, where, first serious relationship ended, which sucked. But then also I got this really out of the blue great news. I got this job offer in Melbourne that come out of nowhere. So, newly single, moving to a place that was completely new, didn't know anyone, all of these stuff, like a lot of really good and really shit change at the same time. Yeah. So it was a really fucking strange time. And I remember I was working a lot, but then when I'd go home, I was trying to maybe start freelancing and doing all of this stuff on the side. So I was either working or nothing, because I was living in this little town, didn't know anyone, whatever.
Are you so grateful for that looking back on it?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Because I look back at that now and go, okay, well, and I started, that's where I started reading books, listening to podcasts, doing all of this stuff, this self-development stuff, right? Yeah. But I looked back, and it very quickly, maybe 6 months into that, where I was still not, I would say, in a place that I wasn't exactly happy or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But I looked at a lot of the people around me, my age, a little bit older, whatever. And I was like, I'm so much more, I would think about things a lot more, and I seem to want a lot more out of what I was doing. And I don't think I'm unique in that at all. But I just think it's very hard for people that are starting to realize that about themselves, that they want more out of things. They think a little bit more deeply on things. I think if you're just starting to do that, you can feel very isolated. And so back then, if I knew that there was this group of people who were exactly the same, that would have been huge. So if that's the thing that I can start to do, that would be mad. If I can create that for, 19-year-old me, perfect. That would be a great sort of thing. Yeah. But I don't feel especially qualified on any one thing where I can sit down and be the expert on that, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I think I'm just trying to facilitate something, whereas community, I think, is a big focus for me.
I think that's what we need. Yeah. More, less people giving. This is one thing that's difficult about the self-development space, is a lot of content is do this, do that. Yeah. Fitness is saturated with it on its own. There's a raging debate in the fitness community at the moment between, training in the stretch position for maximum hypertrophy is big for a while. Then training in the stretch or lengthened position, like lengthened partials, are they better? Yeah. And now there's this other side sort of pushing back, being like, dude, limited range of motion, partial reps, not in the stretch position,
more in the contraction,
in the shorter position, can be just as good, if not sometimes better, than the stretch position for growing. Like, there's this huge push, and even for someone who's in the industry, it's like, how much research you got to sift through to be able to figure out what's what, and does it even matter?
What is the difference?
When people say maximum hypertrophy, are we talking like the lengthened position is significantly greater growth, or is it marginally greater that would only really apply to the upper echelon for whom that really matters? Yeah. Probably more at that camp in my assessment, but there's so much. Huberman podcast, I think, is somewhat guilty of this, which is why I'm not the biggest fan. It's a lot of, I think if you listen to too much Huberman, you could end up with a 4-hour morning routine.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
To function.
Yeah.
Which is why I like Hormozy, because it's kind of like, dude, wake up and start working.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just much. Yeah.
So much nicer.
100%.
I have my coffee and I just start.
Yeah.
Great.
That's something too. Like there's this. don't know if this is the right term for it, but like maximizing versus optimizing. So just going like, what are all of the best steps that I need to do? I need to get up and get sunlight, and then I need to delay my coffee for 90 minutes, and I need to do all of these things because that's going to get me in the perfect position to perform optimally. It's like, yeah, okay, you've spent 3 hours doing that this morning.
Yeah.
If you missed one thing, now does that fuck with your head for the whole day? You're thinking about that. That's having a negative impact on the rest of what you're trying to do. Just fucking do something, you know? Like,
optimal only matters when you're at that level. When you watch the Olympics, one of my favorite events in like the Winter Olympics is like the downhill skiing where they're going like 120, 130 down a hill, and I'm like,
yeah,
fuck, do you do that? Just boggles my mind. But the difference between first, second, and third place is often at most like a second, fractions of a second. Yeah, being as optimal as possible matters for them at that level. For the rest of us, probably not. Getting the biggest bang for your buck in the gym, that's why I'm a fan of compound lifts. Like bench press for a beginner won't grow your triceps probably as much as an isolation exercise would, but for a beginner, you're still going to get a good amount out of it.
Yeah, there's those beginner gains, right?
So...
But that's something. So I've heard that there's like was this maybe Mike Israel might have said this. There's like, so the gain from, you know, obviously not going to the gym, going once a week to the gym, that's infinite. That's huge, right? Yeah. 1 session to 2 sessions a week, that's another pretty significant jump again. 2 to 3, there's a bit of a significant jump there. It's something. 3 to 4, there's not really much net benefit to that if you're in the early stage. 4 to 5, again, it's even smaller. And beyond that, there's probably nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends on the context of that clip, what he's talking about. If he's talking about like whole body training, yeah, it depends how you break up your week.
Yeah, yep.
Because at the same time, he will also say more volume is generally preferred than less volume. More sessions in the week affords you the opportunity for more volume. Yeah. So it just depends how you're breaking the week up. But yeah, it's more of the longer you train for, the less benefit you're going to get. But again, that still depends on the goal. If you've been primarily focusing on hypertrophy for like 4 years, and you're like, I'm going to do 2 years where I almost exclusively focus on strength, you're probably going to have a good 6 to 12 months of the strength side of things feeling a little bit like newbie gains again. Like you get a lot stronger the bigger your muscle gets, but when you focus just on strength, there's untapped potential there because you haven't trained that quality. So when you change the quality focus, if you really haven't trained that quality for a while, you tend to see pretty rapid. Like when I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the first time I went and I rolled, I rolled really hard too because I was trying to use my strength because I had no technique, so I gassed myself. But after my first session, I came home and laid on the floor for like 90 minutes because I was just so utterly wrecked. Right? Yeah. I could push that same level of intensity now. I'll come home and have lunch and I'm good. Yeah. But I'd been training at that point for years, like weight training. Yeah. I had a good amount of muscle, but I hadn't trained that quality, that cardiovascular quality. So yeah, one thing that might also be good for us to talk about is to explain how we know each other, how this has come about.
Quite an interesting story, right? So we went to the same school, but you were what? What year did you graduate?
09.
09. So I graduated in 16.
Yeah. You weren't even in year 7 when I finished.
But I think I was in year 10. I'm pretty sure I was in year 10 when you were doing the training stuff with the school.
Yeah, so I came and did like school sport. Especially the main reason was like I wanted to do some practice with the exercise sort of stuff because I'd done the TAFE qualifications and I've done much.
Were you like starting to PT at that point? Had you had clients yet, or was it?
No, I did the Broughton thing for a few months or something or even a year or so before I decided. So when I was working at the pools doing swim teaching, because I had my fitness cert, they've got PTs and stuff who worked in the gym, and one of them came in one day, and on the side she would work at high schools under some company name. She'd work at some high schools and do like an hour of school sport. And we got talking and she was like, I'm giving that up. The company is looking for someone else. And she was explaining the pay and it was like $55 or something for a session, which for me at the time, I was like teaching in the water for like $32 an hour or something. I was like, good money. And then I sort of crunched the number. I did that for a few months working with this other company. And I was like, what if I went to Broughton and I offered to do this on my own? So I got paid for like doing 90 minutes worth of work. I got paid $120.
Shit.
I would charge way more for that now. But at the time I'm like, that's heaps good money. That's like for 90 minutes. So I was primarily just doing it for the money because it was pretty easy money.
Yeah.
And down the road, I went into the PT thing. But yeah, I came into the school sport for a while as sort of my own. That was my introduction, my naive introduction into business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was... I remember we had because it was always like... It was a lot of just... That was my, I think, first experience with like gym-related stuff. Because I'd done martial arts forever. Like,
Yeah.
so that was already a big part of my life. But like gym-related stuff, I'd never set foot in a gym, anything like that. So I remember doing that. But I was a little smart ass back then too. Like, I remember those sessions. I was a...
Yeah, but everyone was. And the hard thing is I wasn't that much older.
Yeah.
I was still like young and no, the kids being smart asses didn't really bother me because I had a good experience, like a good amount of experience working with kids and teens. I only clashed with a kid once and walked away from that feeling like I feel like an idiot with how I responded to that. That's a whole other story. But now you were all right. So how did we get talking? I think I added you on Facebook.
Yeah. You added
That was
me.
part of my cold outreach.
I was going to ask about this because that's something that was like, because so I think before we spoke, I went away on a trip with a couple of mates. We went down to the South Coast, and on that trip, I think one of them had noticed that there was a friend request from you. It was someone else who was in my grade at the time, and they were like, everyone in that group at that point had been like, yeah, he's added us. And I'm like, yeah, I think maybe it's part of what he's doing for his business. It's probably like a networking, whatever. He's probably trying to like connect with people to get leads, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, from that, and then I think the week after, maybe that's when you initially messaged, or a couple weeks after, something like that.
Yeah.
And then, we went and got to talking, and we're like, bro, we should start a podcast.
That was that was a weird experience. That made me extremely uncomfortable.
Just cold outreaching to people.
Yeah. Because you feel like a slut.
But you know what? You've got the perfect way. Like, if it's people that have at least, there's not many degrees of separation between us, right? Like I think we had mutual friends with
probably a couple
people,
of
guys in, maybe if they were in your grade that I trained with or whatever. There was like, we knew each other through mutual people at least. So you've got like an easy way in going like, or at the very least, we went to the same school.
Yeah.
So there's that easy icebreaker there, but it would be a weird experience the first few times of being like
it is. Yeah.
You would have got responses from people surely that were kind of like, what, who the fuck is this guy? Or just ghosting. Or...
Yeah. So most people, it really isn't that bad on social media. People either don't accept your friend request, fine. Or they accept and you send them a message and they just never reply, fine. Or they reply and they're just very short. Because they're sort of like on the defensive, which is fair. And then you get people that want to have a chat, and they're good. Like so that was advice given to me from like my business coach, and he was like, look, this stuff is uncomfortable, and you feel somewhat dirty because you know deep down you're adding people because you're looking for more clients.
So was that the primary objective of it? Was it like looking for clients, or were you kind of like, yeah, okay, that's one of the things, but were there other...
For sure. Like I like networking. I like meeting people, like talking. Like you didn't become a client, but we're here, we're doing this, which is pretty sick. And I've had a number of experiences like that where I've just talked with people and it was just great catching up with them. Yeah. Nothing came of it. So like my coach said to me, like, yes, your primary thing is you're looking for work. Get used to rejection, get used to no. Mm-hmm. And part of it also came down to what would I be willing to do to provide for my girls?
Yeah, okay.
And it's like, if a bunch of people think I'm a douchebag, like I'm only adding them because I want their money, if they're going to think less of me because of that, but doing that action will provide a better life for my girls, I'll do it.
Yeah,
I
the
don't
upside's
care.
way bigger.
I'll take the pain. I don't give a shit. But I also know deep down, I care about people. I have a service I truly believe in, and I know I can help people who have goals or problems that I'm trained to help with. So yeah, primarily it was, is there anyone needing help? And as uncomfortable as it was, I got like 5 or 6 amazing clients out of that process.
Yeah. It's a net win.
Yeah, and all of them have finished their first 12 weeks with me, and all of them are like signed on for another 12 months. So, like, yes, it was for the lead thing, but at the same time, I'm also delivering something that is genuinely good, so I don't feel as bad about the process. Yeah, but like this whole thing has been, it was not, I caught up with a lot of guys like in your year, because I did school sport with them. And it's been genuinely really, really nice catching up with them, even the ones who did become clients, the ones who didn't, just to see how you guys have sort of grown up.
It's interesting, man. This comes back to like the community stuff that I was talking about, because it's like, I think there's this big, I think, need now for like community-based things. The world sort of swung so super online with everything, right? People just want it to be, you're talking on Instagram, whatever, human interaction dipped. COVID happened. And then I think after that, now there's this big push for like in-person stuff. Like I saw some interesting thing where I think most of the big dating apps are owned by, or at least partially owned by, one umbrella company. I think I need to fact check this, but I saw this report where it was like all of these apps or this company lost a huge amount of market share and profit over the past 2 years or something. They're losing users. People are just not using these things. That tells me that people want to meet in person more now. I get ads for these like in-person, like I saw this thing on Instagram of like an in-person like dating app, dating event, whatever, blind dating thing.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I've seen them. Yeah,
they're just a cash grab. I think. I don't know. I'm a skeptical.
I tried speed dating for the first time a few weeks ago.
What was the experience like?
I liked it because nothing came of it. I had a few people message me the day after, but not the ones I was personally interested in. There's only like 1 or 2 there I was particularly interested in. But I enjoyed it. Part of this is again the autism and the anxiety and I enjoyed it for the sake of people are interesting. Number one, everyone's got a story. If you listen, the one viewer we have at this point, if you view everyone as they have an interesting story to tell, it drastically changes your engagement with anyone and everyone you talk to. I learned that coaching people and having people come into the gym as leads and prospects. Just practice being fascinated by people. It helps. It helps. So I enjoyed. I found I met so many interesting people doing that night, but I also enjoyed not putting on a fake version of me at all, but going in and being like, I'm going to try and be the best version of me tonight and just see what happens. And I got a number of comments from a couple of the women like, oh, you're the most charismatic and energetic person we've spoken to. I'm like, if the divorced, anxious-ridden divorcee can be the most charismatic guy on the night, like, guys, seriously, at least in my head, I think I'm I've always been sort of towards the bottom of the social hierarchy. I'm climbing it, but like, man, if I can do it, most other dudes can do it.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of them things where people, at the end of the day, if you can get comfortable with yourself, you become your own favorite topic, right? Everyone likes to talk about themselves, not in an arrogant, like egotistical way. No, it's just it's the thing that you know the most about. Yeah. Right. Your whole experience is the thing that you have. Yeah. So when people show interest in that, it's fucking awesome, right? Yeah. And people love being around people that make them feel good about themselves. So it's.
I would honestly do it again because they're like when it's the same thought process I had when I asked a woman out the other night, because I was, a lot of my being was like, don't do it. There's too much potential pain on the other side of rejection. And I had to remind myself, what do I lose by going on the speed dating or by asking this woman for her number? I don't lose anything I didn't come here with. Like, I didn't know her 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
What have I lost? Nothing. And my mind goes, well, maybe you lose a bit of self-respect. Maybe you lose this good mood that you're in. Maybe you lose because of the rejection. Maybe you get
that lasts for this such a short.
You get the confirmation. I'm like, yeah, but I also get to, like, one of my biggest burdens has been learning to regulate my emotions. I'm like, you get another fantastic opportunity.
Yeah.
To experience something that hurts and then navigating it better than you have the last time and the last time and the last time. So there was no downside. And that helped in both situations tremendously. I don't give a fuck. What am I going to lose? Nothing. I had a great speed dating experience. I got a few numbers at the end of it, didn't do anything with it. And the other one was I asked a woman out for the first time properly in like 14 years. And she said yes. We went on 2 dates and she was a fascinating person. Yeah. I'm almost certain I'm not getting a third, but I was still like, I had a great time because she was just genuinely so interesting and so great to talk to. So, and that's why I'm doing this as well. Yeah. Who knows what will come of this? Who knows? But yeah, so I'm actually keen to go do more face-to-face stuff for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a big need for that kind of stuff. That's a motivation for me with this kind of thing, and like that's kind of major thing I want to try and focus on in 25 is like, how do I get into more social circles that I like don't feel like it's a mad effort to be involved with. Because I've noticed that with a lot of old friendships, it's like, it's outside of just the fact that we've known each other for so long, there's not really much of a, not with all of my mates. Some of my mates I get along with really well, but like, I want to just find more high quality relationships in general, friendships, whatever.
I have part of an answer for that if you want to get into it.
Maybe. Let's use that as our next topic.
Okay. All right.
Is that something we can build an episode around, do you think?
Yeah. Because this is that would be very actionable because that's something I've thought a lot about the last few months. We'll get into it in the next one.
All right, man.
For sure.
Good first step, bro.
Cool. Yeah, it's fun. Thanks, man.
Awesome.